Don't settle for a fake snarler when you can have Beard Brothers' premium range of all-natural sausages. Proudly New Zealand made, you'll find them fresh in your local Foursquare, New World and Pack and Save. Beard Brothers, crafted with care, the old school way.
All right, now changes to the aged care funding model is on the cards, with a Ministerial advisory group being established to make recommendations to a system the government says is out of date. The government currently spends $2.5 billion a year on aged care, which is provided privately. Associate Health Minister Casey Costello says there were major political considerations attached to any changes, so an independent group was needed to make recommendations as well as long-term thinking and bipartisan approach. She said the announcement was about better health outcomes for the 900,000 Kiwis that are over 65 and a better fit-for-purpose aged care system. Now, the number of New Zealanders aged 65 or over is expected to increase to 1.3 million by 2030. Christine Ranken, she's well known for being a political commentator and who I always enjoy thoroughly having on to talk about issues, but she is also, and I don't think we talk enough about it, to be honest, she is the chief executive of the Lake Taupo Hospice, and she joins me now. Christine, good morning.
Good morning, Leah. How are you?
Well, look at us talking in the AM instead of the PM.
What? Quite a change.
Whoa, I mean, you're up early. You always are, but geez, I'm just about getting out of the scratcher at this time. No, I'm not that bad.
And my husband calls it that. He'd love that.
And I love him. Okay, Christine, look, in all seriousness, while this announcement by the government on changes to the aged care funding model might not affect hospice directly, and we will talk a little bit about that, though, do you believe the sector is struggling to meet the needs of our older Kiwis, older New Zealanders?
Totally and absolutely. And look, we've known for a long, long time that baby boomers were going to be hitting all kinds of sectors over the next, well, they've started already, but over the next 10 years or so, it just explodes. And rest home beds are scarce. So in terms of hospice, we look for rest home beds for respite care. So anyone that's taking care of someone who's very ill, you can get respite, 28 days a year of respite care and 28 days a year of palliative care. So when someone's really sick and it's been intense, you can take those days any way you like. But you go through a bit of a process to do it. But there are no beds available there. A doctor told me about 2 weeks ago they'd had a patient waiting for a bed in Rotorua Hospital for 165 days. They just aren't out there. They just aren't out there. And you need them. Sometimes you need them desperately quickly. And the other aspect of that is dementia. The lack of dementia beds, a lot of families try to keep their dementia patients at home. And often, because I used to be on the health board, so people will stop me on the street and say, how can I get some relief? There's nowhere for them to go. So rest homes have dementia units as well. But no, we're in trouble. And thank goodness somebody's facing that and at least not going to put some plan in place, but it's going to cost a lot.
Yes. The Ministerial Advisory Group will also look into costs, speaking of providing aged care that could be reasonably shared between those receiving care and the government. And on that, if we looked at hospice, I think I've got my figures right, Christine, you can correct me, but last year it cost $226 million and the government provided $114 million. The remaining money was raised through community donations, fundraising and other sources. How sustainable, Christine, is it to rely on community support?
Oh, look, I do believe communities have an appropriate part to play. And I look at my Taupo community and they are utterly magnificent to hospice. But we're in this position because the government's never taken responsibility for the dying. It's something they don't like to talk about. We're not specifically mentioned in Health New Zealand's planning. You know, they have been born well, growing well, living well, and then you just disappear, Leah.
Right.
You just quietly disappear.
Shuffle off into the ether.
Hopefully you're cremated and there is nothing to show that you've ever been here. Just go quietly. It is really a shame that New Zealand's attitude to death causes a lot of issues in our environment, like in the hospice environment, because it's easy to ignore that we're there and we do the most vital, magnificent work. For me, I get about 28% of my funding from the government. No one can tell me why my percentage is where it is. But if we didn't have huge community support, and I am so proud of my team. The service they give is magnificent, but palliative care is getting its own focus from the government, but I don't know where it's going to end up because it's so variable across the country, and rest homes are an integral part of what we do.
Christine, I just want to go a little bit deeper into what you were saying, and I did not know that, and it's sad and fascinating at the same time that even the government, like you said, they look into, you know, as babies and then as healthy as adults. But there's nothing in there about when we get to that age where as we are, we're going to shuffle off, you know, fall off the perch. It's completely ignored.
Absolutely ignored. A politician told me a while ago that talking about death does not engender votes. And, you know, weird as that sounds, I think that's the way they see it. And, you know, New Zealanders pretend, people often say to me, if I die, and I say, you are going to die, because all of us are going to die. We're here for a limited period of time. But I cannot tell you how important palliative care and hospice services are. And they are ignored, and it is peppercorn. We're given the crumbs. That's what it feels like to me. And there is no set way that things are funded, which they're working on. But I look at the big ones who cost a fortune, and I look at my team who does it on the smell of an oily rag, but does it magnificently, and there's got to be some courageous decisions.
You know, it's when you said, you know, the politicians said that death doesn't get votes. Isn't it interesting? You know, the saying, the only certainties in life, taxes and death. They're quite happy to talk about taxes.
They love taxes.
In fact, they like to tax us to death, but they won't talk about that.
No.
And I think keep going.
No, it's one of our greatest times of need. One of our, you know, I think a lot of people also think that you have a heart attack and it's all over in a few minutes. People die terrible deaths. That's the reality of it. Some die quietly and nicely, and people will be turning off the radio now, because they don't want to hear it. You know, we want to pretend it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, look, I hope not, Christine, because I think it's so important. You and I have discussed this before, and I mean, I think as adults and intelligent people, and we should, you know, like you said, it's going to happen to all of us. And I don't think until my mother was in hospice in the final weeks of her life. And up until then, I had not stepped foot in a hospice, Christine. I mean, why would I? You know, like it hadn't touched me then. And then I couldn't believe how amazing these people were. You know, and you know, your mother's dying. It is the emotions are at high level, but they were just phenomenal. And then that's when you start to go, right, okay. And then recently a friend of mine sadly has passed, but he was in there only a week ago, was only in there for a couple of days because he did not want to go back to hospital. He could not face going back. And they just needed time for him to get his breathing right, and then they sent him home where sadly he's passed. But they were in there for a couple of days, you know.
Don't settle for a fake snarler when you can have Beard Brothers' premium range of all-natural sausages. Proudly New Zealand made, you'll find them fresh in your local Foursquare, New World and Pack and Save. Beard Brothers, crafted with care the old school way.